Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video. Today we're here with part 3 of our F122 driver career mode at Williams. Last time out in Australia wasn't the greatest race at our home Grand Prix. We DNF'd pretty early on in the race in those wet conditions. Looking into this round though, where we are trying to improve, we unfortunately weren't able to bring in any upgrades. Aston Martin have, so they've pulled it away a little bit, and we may struggle a little bit here in Imola. However, Imola has been a track that I have been pretty good at and pretty comfortable at in the past, so hopefully we can use that to our advantage. You can see we are heading into a wet qualifying session. We're going to very quickly head through this qualifying because it is a sprint weekend, and yeah, we're going to be just trying to get through a qualifying, a sprint, and a race, whilst also keeping the video relatively normal length. So yeah, let's get straight into it. You can see the end of our first flying lap here. We're going to cross the line and we are going to be P9, splitting the two Alfa Romeos. For now, obviously not everyone's set a lap time yet, and I decided to go for 2 consecutive laps here in this first run because that's something you can normally do in these wet conditions and get the tyres up to a better temperature. However, through turn 2 they're just a little bit too much throttle application. We are in the gravel trap, and so that puts an end to our first run here in Q1. You can see we go back to the garage and we are 18th, 2.4 seconds off of the fastest time. Albon 1.3 seconds off the fastest time, right up in P9. So we've got a lot of work to do in our second run here if we want to even have a chance at Q2. Unfortunately, I just mistimed it and am not able to do 2 consecutive laps here in this run, but we do improve by 1.5 seconds and get ourselves to P14 there, so only 1 second off of Charles Leclerc, who is on provisional pole. And we do make it through to Q2 here for the second time in round 3 at Imola. So yeah, only about a 10.5 ahead of Albon, so still close with our teammate. But let's try and give it everything in Q2, see if we can maybe even make a Q3 appearance. I doubt it, but we're going to give it our absolute best to get the best possible position. You can see coming to the end of our second lap of our first run here in Q2, we're improving by 2 tenths, and we don't move up any positions. We stay P10, so we find time, but we don't find any positions as we cut a little bit forward here. We're back in the garage. We are sitting P12, 1.3 seconds off of the provisional pole time, about 7 tenths ahead of the car behind us, Pierre Gasly and the AlphaTauri there. So we've got a nice little buffer there, but we're going to go back out for a second run to see if we can improve. Here's the end of our first lap of the second run. We're going to improve by about 0.06 of a second. We don't find any time. We're about 0.07 of a second off of Alonso in 11th, and we are going to go for a second consecutive run there. We've just about timed it a bit better than in Q1, but just through here we're going to have a look at how skatey this Williams is in these conditions. You can see through turn 2 almost losing it, same too with turn 3, having to be very ginger, and I have still found time there, so that just goes to show how the Williams reacts in these conditions. Very difficult to drive, especially to drive quickly. But you can see we unfortunately make a little mistake out of the last corner. We lose about half a tenth of time, and we're going to improve by about 0.13 of a second. We don't find any positions. We end up in 13th. Even with that time we did lose though, we even if we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have improved any positions. So P13, our best qualifying result so far this season out of the 3 rounds we have done. So can't be too disappointed with that. We are improving bit by bit. But yeah, let's have a look at the starting order for the sprint race here in Imola.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Hamilton, George Russell and Leclerc, Norris, Ricciardo, Ocon and Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso, Tsunoda, Benjamin and Magnussen, Gasly, Vettel, Alex Albon and Guan Yu Zhou, Stroll and Mick Schumacher. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint.
So here we are on the grid for the sprint race here in Imola. To quickly run through just the way I'm planning on formatting these sprint races. Normally in a race I will focus on other battles and things that are going on. When it comes to sprint races though, I am going to focus purely on myself. So any overtakes or any dramas or any pit stops or anything will only be to do with myself. Otherwise the video is just going to drag on too long if I go into as much detail in the sprint races as I do in the actual Grand Prix. So Just a little heads up on the way I'm planning on doing these. But either way, here we go. 5 red lights to get away for the sprint race, and we are a go. It's an alright launch for us there. We're about the same as everyone else, but everyone else then gets the better traction and is able to sort of drive away. So we are going to be side by side with Kevin Magnussen as we head down towards turn 1. We are at risk of losing our position here as we go outside of turn 2, inside of turn 3. We hold on to P13, and Alonso and Tsunoda going side by side, going very slowly here. This might be an opportunity for us to gain a position or two. You can see just biding our time, being very careful, again remembering that this is the sprint race, not the actual Grand Prix. We're going to dive to the inside of Alonso there to try and take P12 off of him, but we do unfortunately just not quite get the traction out of the corner, and he is back ahead of us. We have Magnussen right behind, looking to the inside. We go around the outside and hold P13 there. Magnussen seems to be very keen on taking 13th off of us here, and to be fair, I don't think our pace around here is quite as good in the dry as it is in the wet. As you can see, struggling a little bit to keep with the pack ahead, and we are very much under pressure from the Haas behind. As we look up ahead, there are Alonso and Tsunoda once again going side by side, battling away for 11th and 12th. This allows us the opportunity to get right in behind the Alpine as we head down towards the final couple corners. We're going to go side by side with Alonso, but that's just going to force him to the inside of Tsunoda once again as these guys battle it out. And yeah, it's just losing us a bunch of time to the top 10. You can see those guys are really gone. But as we now head down towards the start of lap 2 here, we're going to go 3 wide down the main straight here. And we do end up deciding to pull it back in behind there as we just didn't quite have the same straight line speed. As we head down towards turn 1 though, these two still going side by side, so we may be able to find a position. Tsunoda makes a big mistake there and runs off into the gravel. That's a free position for us, and a very bad result there for Yuki in the sprint race, pretty much just throwing his entire qualifying out the window. And we are able to also make the move on Fernando Alonso. We run a little bit wide there in the gravel, where we hold position ahead of the Spaniard, the two-time champion, and get ourselves into P11. But look at the gap to P10. That's going to be a mission if we want to close in on that, but I don't quite think we are. We just don't quite have the pace. You can see still here on lap 2, making a little mistake there out of the chicane, just losing traction. This allows Alonso to get up alongside us down towards the second last corner, and he's completely ahead before we even get to the braking zone. And so we pull back in behind to see if we can maybe get a move done with slipstream and a little bit of ERS. But we once again, I was just having so much trouble with grip in the start of this sprint race here, and yeah, unfortunately we just don't quite have the straight line speed to close in on Fernando. You can see Magnussen is able to benefit from our mistake earlier on in the straight, and he is back through, and we are back now down to P13, back to where we started. So in the end, you can't be too upset with being where you started, but yeah, considering Tsunoda came off, we should be an extra position down. But oh well, we're just going to have to get going with it. You can see we just don't quite have the pace of these guys, as Alonso and Magnussen now 4 seconds up the road, and we are under attack from the other Haas of Mick Schumacher on lap 9 now, and he just completely flies past us with DRS there before we even get to the braking zone of turn 1. Now I'm just going to have to try my best to try and stick with him. We've also got Pierre Gasly behind us. We're now down to P14 as we cut now to lap 10. You can see I'm just not able to stick with the Haas ahead of us as we have a yellow flag up ahead. Ricardo, our fellow Aussie, is out of the session, and the yellow flag there actually saves us from getting overtaken by Pierre Gasly, as he has to back out of it, as there was that yellow flag there. He's not allowed to overtake, and yeah, unfortunately we weren't able to close in on Mick at all. So we're going to finish in P13 where we started there. We were able to hold off Gasly for that final lap, and yeah, we hold on to our starting position at the end of the race. You can't be too upset finishing where you started, but considering really we gained 2 free positions from Tsunoda's mistake and Ricardo retiring, we should have been down in P15. So we've got a lot of work to do heading into the Grand Prix. You can see Sergio Perez there taking out the sprint race ahead of Sainz and Leclerc. The 2 Ferraris are going to want to try and impress the Tifosi here this weekend. But yeah, we've got a lot of work to do if we want to try and find the pace to maybe look at some points. We're still in a good position, still P13 for the start of the Grand Prix. But yeah, let's move into the build-up for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix.
Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters wearing red today, and they've all turned out for what we're expecting will be a sensational event here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. One lap of Imola, anti-clockwise of course, unlike most Formula One circuits, will take our drivers around 3.1 miles of track. 19 turns, 9 right-handers and 10 to the left. Drivers will need to be precise at the hairpin at turn 7, given the subsequent uphill section. Without a good exit from that corner, they'll lose a lot of time on that stretch. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Sergio Perez will lead us away from pole position, and the smooth operator Carlos Sainz completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Hamilton, George Russell and Norris, Verstappen, Ocon, Fernando Alonso and Valtteri Bottas, Magnussen, Mick Schumacher, Benjamin and Gasly, Vettel, Tsunoda, Lance Stroll and Alex Albon, Ricciardo, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty, and Guan Yu Zhou. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box. Ant, it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
So here we are on the grid for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, lining up in P13, no grid penalties to report on, so we are staying in our qualifying and sprint race positions. We've got a lot of work to do. Hopefully we've got the pace to at least stay with the cars around us, or to at least not fall back throughout the field. But yeah, definitely our car seems to be a bit more competitive in the wet than it is in the dry. So yeah, there is a possible chance of rain in this race later on, I believe. But you know, we can't really bank on that heading into this race. We just have to hope that we can stick with the pack and maybe make some moves. But we are underway for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. It's sort of a similar start to the sprint race. We get a nice initial launch, but just not quite able to put the power down. And so we are going to fall behind that front pack, but we've done just enough to keep the rest of the pack behind us. So we're pretty much by ourselves heading into turn 1 here, just making sure, looking up ahead of any incidents that may be happening. And we're actually going to get a nice run on Mick Schumacher here heading into turn 4. Can we maybe steal a position off the Haas? We're going to be stuck in behind the other Haas and Magnussen, but we do get the move done there on the young German, and possibly going for a move there on Bottas, but then having to get on the brakes as he comes across to take the apex of the corner. But yeah, not a bad start. We've made up 1 spot. Let's see if we can continue to do that as we head to the end of lap 1 here. You can see still behind Bottas, looking to make a move down towards turn 1. Possibly Magnussen comes into the pit lane to fix what I would assume is some damage there on his front wing, and that gets us a free position into 11th, and we are now closing in on the Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas as we head down towards turn 1 here on lap 2. We're going to look to the inside, but we just have to back out of it there. Just not quite close enough to get a move done there, or at least to safely get a move done there at this stage of the Grand Prix. And now behind us we have Mick Schumacher versus Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda trying to make up those spots that he lost in the sprint race here, and he's already done a good job to get himself into P13 here, looking to make a move into P12 as they head through turn 6, I believe this is. Heading up the hill now. They're going to continue going side by side, and this is allowing us to pull a bit of a gap and to focus purely on Valtteri Bottas up ahead as they go side by side. Mick runs a bit wide, and that allows the Japanese driver through in the AlphaTauri there into P12. Mick back down to P13, and you can see that's opened up about 1.5 seconds between myself and Tsunoda there, which I'm very grateful for. It's always nice being able to look purely ahead without having too much pressure from behind. But you can see we're going to go through a little running order check here so far as we head on to lap 3. Sergio Perez leads the way, holding on to his lead from the start of the race. Sainz in second, Leclerc in third. Those 2 Ferraris will be chasing that Red Bull down to please the Tifosi this weekend. Hamilton sits 4th, Lando doing very well for himself there in 5th in the McLaren. Russell sits 6th, Verstappen down in P7. I believe he made a big mistake in the sprint race, and he's trying to recover from that. Alonso and Ocon are in 8th and 9th, with Bottas in P10 there, rounding out the points paying positions for Alfa Romeo, and he's got us sitting just in behind. We just need one mistake from one of these guys ahead of us, and we could be having a sniff at our first points in our career here. As a Mercedes junior driver, I think getting some points in round 3 would be very, very good for us here, for obviously for Williams, but also to sort of prove that we are worthy of that Mercedes seat. Obviously, that is our goal at this stage of the career. You can see 2 Alpines up ahead have been battling away, and that has allowed Bottas now to have a look at making a move on Esteban Ocon, but he gets left on that inside curve. He makes a bit of a mistake, and we're going to sneak and very cheekily get ourselves up alongside the Alfa Romeo there as we head through turn 6 here, around the outside. We're going to continue going side by side. I try and get a bit of a slipstream off of the Alpine ahead of us, but Bottas is able to keep it alongside. We're going to go around the outside of the Alpha, and we do get ourselves into P10 and into the points, but now it's a question of, do we have the pace to hold on to this position for now? We're going to try and snag some DRS off of Ocon, but you can see here cutting to lap 7 now, Russell making a move on Lando Norris up the sort of further up the field here from where we are, and he gets the move done on the McLaren, as you'd expect for the Mercedes, but Russell makes a mistake into turn 1, maybe not compensating for that extra speed he had with the DRS and slipstream, and that's going to allow the Alpines there to make a move, and we are going to just about get the move done there. Got a little nerve-wracking there as Russell came back across onto the racing line as we were about to go past, but we do get the move done into P9 now, and Russell's actually helped us out there, holding up Bottas as well, and we've got over a second of the cars behind. You can see, unfortunately, the Alpines just have a little too much pace for us. They're about 2 seconds up the road from us now. You can see Russell's already closed in at the end of lap 7. However, more disaster strikes for the Briton in the Mercedes there. He has an engine failure literally just a lap after he made that mistake. Maybe this engine failure was caused by running into the gravel, I'm not too sure, but that is a bit of a shame there for George Russell. He's going to retire from the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix very early on here on lap 8, and that is a free position pretty much guaranteed for us here as we move on to lap 9 now. Behind us, Tsunoda going for a move on Bottas to get himself into the points, and Bottas runs wide now, and so that is another mistake. And Ricciardo also, out of nowhere, he was battling someone as well, and he's also run wide, so it seems to be a bit of a hotspot for mistakes. Turn 1 there, but that has really helped us out. That's taken a bit even more pressure off of us. That's one less person chasing us down in this Grand Prix. Tsunoda has done very well to get himself into the points, and he seems to be very quick and punchy, so we're going to have to watch out for him as we head on to lap 14 now. We've got the 2 Alpines once again battling away here for P8 and 7 as they go side by side into turn 1. Ocon backs out of it, but Alonso runs a little bit wide. He doesn't go into the gravel, but that has really slowed these guys down, and if these guys can keep doing this, then maybe we can get ourselves back into this fight. We've got Yuki Tsunoda right behind us though, but we're going to come into the pit lane at the end of lap 14. One of the first cars to come in there. You can see also Alonso coming in, and Charles Leclerc seems to have come in as well from the front pack, but not many cars coming in on lap 14, so hopefully this little bit of an undercut can hopefully just help us out and keep us ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. We do get held up a little bit there in the pit box. I'm guessing we just got a slightly quicker pit stop than Alonso, and that meant we just had to wait a second for him to come back past because he was still too close. But yeah, hopefully on this hard set tyres now that we will be taking to the end, we are able to get an undercut on Tsunoda. We're already ahead, but we are just trying to essentially cover him off from doing an undercut on us and getting ahead in the pit stop strategy. We will have nice warm tyres when he comes out of the pit lane. So we are going to have to cut forward a couple laps here to see how this has worked out for us. We go to lap 17. The Alpines are still on top of each other. It has worked for us. We are a bit ahead of Tsunoda, but he is chasing us down. Once again, Ocon is ahead of Fernando Alonso there, and they again here on lap 18 going side by side in turn 1. These guys are really slowing each other down, and they've had a really bad run through the first chicane here. We're going to get ourselves alongside Ocon there, just about, very close to the back of that Alpine. We're going to go around the outside of turn 4, inside for turn 5, and that is the move done for P8. We do not have the pace to be in P8 at the moment. We are just very cleverly and very luckily, I guess, really benefiting from these guys slowing each other down, and also from the mistakes of a bunch of other people so far in this Grand Prix. We are close enough for DRS here on lap 20 now to go for a move on Fernando Alonso. You can see I've had to use all my ERS just to keep up with him though, so we're out halfway down the straight, but we are within the slipstream and the DRS helping us. He defends very nicely into turn 1, but runs a little too deep, and that allows us to get a nice switch back on him and get ourselves into P7 which again, we do not have the pace for. And so as we cut forward now to lap 22, he had the time to re-energize that battery. Meanwhile, we have still been using all of our ERS to just try and stay ahead. And so he's going to come at us here down towards turn 1 very easily. Not even really a challenge. He flies by us there in the Alpine. That's us back down to P8. And yeah, it's going to be a struggle to hold on to P7 because we are not going to be able to pull away from Alonso. We just don't even have the pace to be here as we go to lap 23. Now you can see again I've used all my ERS just to keep up, and so on lap 23 he's squeezing between the wall because I don't want to waste this opportunity to get back ahead of the two-time champion down towards the turn 1, 2, 3 chicane. I decide to back out of it. Alonso again runs a bit wide. We get the switchback once again, sort of an identical move there to what we did a couple laps ago. That is us back into P7. We've been able to pull away a little bit from Ocon there, but as we now cut to lap 26, you can see it is Ocon behind us, so that battling from us has allowed the Frenchman to catch up as we head into turn 1. Ocon down the inside, a big dive bomb, locks up the wheels, he's off. He's kept it on track just about, I believe, and he is just behind his teammate Alonso. But I'm not sure if it's because of that or if something else happened at the same time, but we have a safety car now out on track, and that is going to give us a bit of a breath of fresh air to hold off Alonso, who has broken his front wing. So he's going to have to come in, but you can see at the top of the screen there, we have unfortunately got the safety car bug. If any of you haven't seen what this is, for whatever reason, if you get a safety car towards the end of a race, there is a chance that it just completely glitches out. So the leaders have crossed the line, so we are supposed to be trying to catch up to the safety car pack now. But for whatever reason, there's this delta that keeps coming in and out, and for the player, it's not an issue. I could just floor it and go and catch the next car ahead of me, but in the sake of fairness, I've decided to sort of treat it as a virtual safety car here and keep myself close to Ocon because the AI are for whatever reason bound to following this weird invisible delta that's bobbing in and out. But for whatever reason here now, on lap 27, I haven't seen this before, it's fixed itself. Just halfway through the lap, it's just randomly decided, yeah, okay, you can catch a safety car queue now. So, not really too sure what was happening there. I was going to just treat it as a virtual safety car and stay close to Ocon. But yeah, it's been fixed, and so now we can just floor it and try and catch up as per normal. So not really too sure what was happening there, but luckily it has fixed itself, and so I won't complain about that. I just thought I'd point that out there and inform you in case you haven't seen it yet. But here we are with a running order on lap 29 under safety car. Perez still leads the way ahead of now Charles Leclerc, who's overtaken his teammate Carlos Sainz, who sits in P3. Verstappen's gotten himself into P4, so he's made his way towards the very front of the field again. Hamilton sits in P5 there for Mercedes. Norris still doing very well to be in P6 there for McLaren ahead of ourselves. We should not be in P7 right now. We do not have the pace to be in P7, but we are, and so we'll take it. We are ahead of Esteban Ocon there in the Alpine. Tsunoda sits in P9, and Vettel rounds out the top 10 and the points there for Aston Martin. You can see now at the end of lap 29, it is time for the safety car restart. We got our teammate Albon a lap down just ahead of us, so he is hopefully going to get out of the way nice and early. You can see a little bit weird there. He slowed right down on the restart, but then floors it, and he actually has more pace than us because he's in the slipstream. But again, he gets out of the way now a little bit later down the main straight, and so we are down the inside of turn 1. Ocon is also through at turn 1 there. Verstappen and Hamilton battling away there through the chicane, and so that gets us alongside Norris. That's us into P6 now. Stroll is getting out of the way and causing a little bit of carnage, and there's a massive shunt behind us. Ocon is out of the race. He's destroyed the front left of his car there. We're going to have to get a replay of what happened. There is no safety car being called though, because there's only a couple laps left in this Grand Prix. But here's an onboard of what happened to Ocon. You can see Stroll slowing down there and sort of letting everyone through because he was a lap down has just caused a bit of carnage, and Ocon has run into the back of Norris. You can see Norris sort of got boxed in between ourselves and behind Stroll there, who was trying to let everyone through, and he's just come back across the track there ahead of Ocon, who was trying to benefit from that situation. And so I'm not sure really who to blame. I'd say it's more on Norris, but I'd also put it down to a racing incident. That was just a sort of a pretty crappy situation, but luckily we've gotten through that. We are still in P6, and there's no DRS, but we will have a bit of slipstream off of Verstappen to help keep us ahead of Lando Norris. And so we're going to cut to the final lap of the Grand Prix here. Perez is going to win the race here ahead of the two Ferraris who have kept him honest this entire way through, but it is P1 here, the race win for Sergio Perez, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix ahead of Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. Hamilton will get 4th, Verstappen 5th, and somehow we're going to come through for an incredible P6 here, 8 points.
All right, race over. Take care of the car on the way in. take the checkered flag then here in Imola in what has been another outstanding Grand Prix. And talk to me, what do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
Red Bull are our winners today after showcasing some incredible driving. There's been a huge push from them lately to stay competitive with the other teams, and they're certainly proving themselves.
So here we are with the results for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. A very chaotic race in the end there. Sergio Perez takes the win in the overall standings there with... Here we are with the results for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. A very chaotic race here with the combined results. The overall standings after the round this is Sergio Perez takes the win with the win in the sprint race and the Grand Prix, getting 33 points ahead of Charles Leclerc in second, Sainz third, Hamilton goes fourth ahead of Verstappen in fifth, Norris sixth, ourselves we end up seventh overall, so a very, very good weekend here for us in Imola ahead of Russell in eighth, Tsunoda ninth, Vettel rounds out the top 10 in the overall results. Fortunately, Albon didn't get any points in either round and is still yet to score points this season. He's had a bit of bad luck, unfortunately. Our pace has been very similar in qualifying, so hopefully we can see our teammate score some good points at some point. In terms of the driver standings, Perez leading the way on equal points with Carlos Sainz, by the way, both of them on 66 points after 3 rounds. It's sort of a battle with the second drivers at the moment in the championship. Leclerc is in third, Verstappen way down in P6, 46 points off of his teammate. So yeah, a little bit of a strange one there with Perez and Sainz seeming to be the two leading drivers in Season 1 so far. We sit in P9 on 8 points. All of those points obviously coming from the Grand Prix this weekend. We have 58 points off the lead of the championship. Obviously, we're not going for the championship this season. It is Season 1 and we're in a Williams. That's just not really going to happen. Pierre Gasly seems to be best of the rest at the moment in P8 with ourselves just 3 points off of him. Hamilton, the lead Mercedes driver as well at the moment, ahead of George Russell by quite a margin. Lando doing very well to be in P5 in the standings for McLaren. In terms of the constructors, we are on 8 points in 7th place, 108 points off of Ferrari, who lead the championship by 30 points over Red Bull. Mercedes don't really seem to be in the fight. They seem to be very much the sort of the third team in this Constructors' Championship. McLaren, best of the rest there in 4th on 29 points. We are equal points with Alfa Romeo, who are in 8th position in the Constructors. They're 3 points off of Alpine as well. So a bit of a close championship there for P6, 7 and 8. I guess you could also count Haas in there as well. They definitely have pace, just not quite the luck that they need at the moment. And Aston Martin, they are very much struggling this season. They'll be looking to bring in some upgrades further on down the line. But yeah, very shaken up order after the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix here. It was a very, very chaotic race right at the end. And yeah, we came out very lucky to finish in P6 here in Imola. We did not have the pace for that. We barely had the pace to be in the points, but we were just very, very lucky in being able to benefit off of people's mistakes. And for example, the Alpines battling and slowing each other down. They pulled a massive gap until they started battling each other. And that's just sort of what we need more of for now, until we are able to bring in more upgrades and get our car further up the order. But if you guys did enjoy it and want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We are in Miami next, so if you're looking forward to that, make sure you stick around, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.